The World Health Organization says global COVID-19 cases increased by 55% last week. Data showed infections increased in all regions except for Africa, which actually reported a decrease of 11%. Southeast Asia saw the biggest jump of 418%, followed by the Western Pacific at 122%. The WHO says Omicron is quickly becoming the dominant variant. Nearly 60% of samples taken over the past 30 days were Omicron, whilst over 40% were Delta. The health agency said Europe reported more than 7 million new Omicron cases in just the first week of January, and it warned that more than half of the population on the continent are on track to contract Omicron in the next 2 months if infections continue at current rates.
U.S. COVID-19 hospitalizations are at record highs, surpassing last winter's peak, pushing healthcare facilities and fewer workers to the limit. Some experts predict the number of hospitalizations could top 300,000 by the end of the month.
We'll need to examine the numbers over the coming days, but we anticipate a peak in the next week or two. The majority of patients who are getting admitted are high-risk patients who are unvaccinated or who are elderly, who have comorbidities like cancer, liver, heart failure, underlying respiratory issues, or diabetes. Now, while the disease is milder, it's also much more transmissible.
Top U.S. public health officials faced tough questioning from a Senate committee Tuesday, leading to this blunt acknowledgement from the acting commissioner of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
I think it's hard to process what's actually happening right now, which is most people are going to get COVID. All right, and what we need to do is make sure the hospitals can still function, transportation, other essential services are not disrupted while this happens.
Schools are struggling to remain open for in-person learning. In Chicago, schools will reopen Wednesday after a teachers' union and the city struck a deal for more testing and additional safeguards.
We know that this has been very difficult for students and families. Our goal throughout this entire process was to both get our students back to in-person learning as quickly as possible and prevent work disruptions for the rest of the school year.
Beginning Saturday, U.S. insurance companies will be required to cover up to 8 rapid tests a month per person. But at-home tests like this are still hard to find in stores, and many in the U.S. have faced long lines for in-person testing. Jim Spellman, CGTN, Bethesda, Maryland.
France has reported a daily record of 368,000 new COVID infections. Authorities have closed 10,000 schools in response to the latest outbreak. Children also have to do a test before attending school if they have been in close contact with an infected child. Meanwhile, the government is urging people to get vaccinated. It says more than 53 million people, that's almost 80% of its population, have been fully vaccinated, and more than 29 million booster doses have been administered. The government also says from mid-January, unvaccinated people will be barred from indoor activities, including dining in.
COVID-19 variant takes hold in Mexico. The country is breaking new infection records. Mexico is now seeing its highest rates of infection since the start of the pandemic, with more than 30,000 new confirmed cases over a 24-hour period this past weekend. The Omicron variant is being blamed, with peaks of infection in the country's north along the US border and in tourist areas popular with international visitors. Despite spread of the highly infectious variant, citizens in the capital don't appear to be overly concerned.
I'm not worried, but I'm taking more care. A lot of people in my closest social circle currently have it.
A lot of people are vaccinated, and while it may protect you, you still have to be careful.
Even the country's president dismissed obvious symptoms he was experiencing during a Monday news conference.
I woke up a little hoarse today, and I'll be doing a test later on, but I think it's just a cold.
He was wrong. President López Obrador later confirmed he does indeed have COVID-19 for the second time in a year. Still, he describes the Omicron variant as a little COVID, one that is less severe and less likely to cause serious illness and death. Health experts, however, say the threat is still very real, especially among the unvaccinated.
Measures that people have.
And some researchers argue Omicron is no less dangerous than previous mutations.
This variant is not milder, it's not as different as they appeared or they are telling people that it is.
With some of the...
For leading Mexican epidemiologist Dr. Alejandro Macias, the arrival of Omicron signals the possible start of a new endemic phase of COVID, when future mutations of the disease may be easier to treat and control.
New variants in the future will enter with people that will have at least some degree of immunity. So I think that the pandemic part of this COVID-19 will be over soon in Mexico.
Alistair Baverstock, CGTN, Mexico City.